This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We Made This.
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you've just listened to, or maybe you're just about to listen to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling. Now, back to your scheduled programming.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello everyone and welcome to Shipwrecked Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast on here, the We Made This podcast network. My name is Kurt North and I am here as always on the main show because during the specials I can't be asked. Joining me, to be fair, I'm going to be on a special very soon because we're going to be looking at Hollyhop. But that would have already aired by the time you've heard this, so forget everything I've just said.
Like fucking months ago.
Yeah, I know. But these things happen. These things are sent to try us. Yes, but as always, I have a guest and a co-host with me. First up, my co-host Mark. How you doing, mate? How are things? How are things been since the last episode, which was all those 7 days ago?
Oh, yeah, all those 7 days ago. Those 7 minutes ago. Now you're in charge of an episode. I'm going to have a beer. So I want you live on air to choose whether I should have Beavertown Luploid, which is an IPA with a green monster on the front, or Beavertown Bloody Hell, which is a blood orange IP with an orange skull on the front.
I'm
Green Monster, I reckon.
Monster. Yeah, I'd say Monster.
Green Monster.
Yeah.
Lovely stuff.
Mainly because I was thinking that because I'm drinking a can of actual Monster.
I've got a glass of water.
Hiya, Colin.
Howdy doodly do.
Colin is here with us. I completely forgot we were doing a podcast there. Colin, you've got a glass of water. Now, you've got a Red Dwarf background on the Zoom. I know people can't see this, but when you lift that glass of water, it's quite disconcerting because it kind of vanishes. It's like
oh yeah,
Shutter Island. Do you ever seen Shutter Island?
Yeah.
And it's like in part of the episode, there's a woman that picks up a glass of water, and the next scene, it's not there.
Yeah,
and that's what what the first thing came back to me.
That'll be good for all the people listening that can't see it.
Exactly, but just watch Shutter Island, so you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Meanwhile, thumbs up for Beavertown Lupaloid IPA, 6.7%. Good shit.
Are you trying to get a sponsorship?
Well, if Beavertown did want to sponsor our podcast, I think that they are the kind of funky brand, really cool designs and stuff that would go with a culty show like this.
Capitalism.
I'm left-wing, but I've never said I wasn't capitalist.
Fair.
Yeah, it's definitely not Marxist. Anyway, let's talk about Red Dwarf.
Oh,
shit, that's what we're here for. We're here for Red Dwarf. We're not here to have fun. As Sir Patrick Stewart once said on the Star Trek Next Generation stage floor, when he actually told people that he wasn't there to have fun, and by the 7th season, he was the silliest guy on there.
Sorry to interrupt already and take it on a tangent. I used to be in a theatre group when I was a kid in Tamworth.
Good.
The Sandyback Theatre group, obviously very well known, as you'd all have heard of it. I once got told there, we're not here to have fun. And I was like, well, you're not winning any fucking Oscars, are you? So why are we here? So I left.
I'm here to have fun and drink odd beer that tastes dead nice.
I'm here to have fun and talk about Red Dwarf. So
yeah, that too.
Well, this actually reinforces my statement last week when I said that, by the second episode of everyone's guest, with the second episode, it seems to fall down a cliff a bit more.
Descend into anarchy.
But anyway, let's talk about Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf, Series 4, Episode 4 is entitled White Hole. A White Hole. And it's directed by Ed Bye, written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, and was aired on the 7th of March, 1991.
Can I tell you a slight inaccuracy there?
Go on.
It's credited as directed by Ed Bye. However,
this is the one where he got sick.
It is.
It is indeed. Yes, you are completely right. Yes.
It was actually directed by Paul Jackson.
Yes. Under the notes of Ed Bye.
Yeah.
He followed Ed Bye's notes to the letter, didn't he?
And he was incredibly strict and already had a reputation for would not take any shit from the cast at all. And Danny John Jules turned up late and got an absolute bollocking from him. He thought it was a joke by the crew members that Paul Jackson was directing it. Didn't believe them. Turned up late anyway. Got his head ripped off by him.
Lovely. Anyway, we're here to talk about Red Dwarf. Series 4, Episode 4 was directed by Ed Bye and written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor. Originally aired on the 7th of March, 1991.
I'm glad you did that twice, Kurt, because I've just realised on the last episode I didn't do it, so that counts.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, this is about Whitehall. So, unfortunately, this will all get scrubbed out at the end anyway.
I'm glad you did that, because on the last episode, I didn't do it. And we're so witty. We're so fucking clever.
So meta. Anyway, we're talking about Whitehall.
Queek turns up.
And then Queek turns up. Queek turns up is the ultimate Whitehall. Yeah.
You were so right about the second episode with each guest being really fucking weird. I remember the last time we recorded with Matt, I said at the moment we stopped recording, I don't envy you editing that one, Kurt. And your face dropped.
Sometimes I feel like just let it go. just don't edit at all. Just literally just record what you've got and put the theme music at the beginning and at the end. Anyway, we're talking about Whitehall. Opening scene. Let's get to at least the opening scene.
RoboCop.
RoboCop seems to instill through a lot of the season at the moment. Terminator seems to come through a lot of the season as well, because you've got the red eye from last week.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of things. And obviously, as something that won't go away, it'll be Toasty as well. So
Talkie Toaster.
Talkie. David Ross is back.
Yes.
So what do you think, Cole?
The original Crichton returns as Talkie Toaster, and he's fucking great as Talkie Toaster.
Yeah, he is.
I think he's the definitive Talkie Toaster. He does a better job than... Was it Tony Hawk the first time?
I think it was, yeah.
I think that this Talkie Toaster scene in the opening of this episode is the definitive Talkie Toaster scene. This is the bit that I just fucking laughed my head off for months about every bit that Talkie Toaster is in this episode. Is just utterly, utterly fantastic.
It's a callback, but it's also still really funny. And they continue with this, running gag that you haven't seen for 9 episodes. Brilliant. Why the fuck not?
It plays into the whole concept of the episode as well. The fact that things are being repeated. They're jumping around all over the place time-wise. So I like it from that point of view. And, you kind of get your Simpsons kind of thing in the face. We got, would you like a crumpet? All that kind of thing. The fact that you get to recall back is wonderful, and I think it's great. What I really like, as I always do with these type of things, is you can totally tell that halfway through the speech that Craig Charles is looking off screen and going, yeah, that's what I've got right. And he only does it. He does it 1.5 times. So it's not bad, considering that he's got a long list of things to say.
Yeah.
He only looks off screen just for a very brief second. I like how it's angled as well. The angle does give you the concept of a stage studio because you can just about see the floodlight at the top. Closely enough. And I love the fact they kept the saucer when he knocks the saucer as well towards the end of the end of the speed as well, because he's like going, one crumpet, and he goes bang, and you can hear the saucer rattle.
Yeah.
So I think it's just wonderful, and the fact that it keeps getting played and played time and time again is marvelous, and the fact that it's kind of methodical, the way that the toaster just keeps on going is wonderful.
Yeah. Well, in the list of various different products, like waffles and toasted tea cakes and all that kind of thing, flapjack gets mentioned. You can't do a flapjack in a toaster. There's two different definitions of flapjack, because there's the sort of oaty bar type thing that we have as a flapjack. But in some bits of America and Canada, some areas call it's like a type of pancake is a flapjack, which you also can't cook in a toaster. So don't know what the fuck is on about there.
Okay, while we're on that, because I'll probably forget later, what is a cheese
Breville? Cheese and ham Breville. It's a toasted sandwich cooked in a Breville, which is another thing you can't do in a toaster like Talkie Toaster, because it needs a Breville sandwich toaster, which is the George Foreman grill kind of thing.
Yeah, but you can get like a pocket thing that you can put 2 slices of bread and cheese in and put that in.
It's not a fucking Breville, though, is it?
No, but it gives you a similar vibe. And he never talks about Pop-Tarts.
He doesn't. Did we have Pop-Tarts over here yet?
I mean, I remember as a kid fucking loving Pop-Tarts, and then I saw some in a pound shop not so long ago, and I was like, fucking Pop-Tarts! And I had to have some Pop-Tarts. And that's the only reason I've mentioned Pop-Tarts, because I've got some Pop-Tarts.
Oh, yeah.
So far, because we are sponsored by Pound Shop.
We are. Shake 'em back.
Shake 'em back. Get the freshest back. What else did we get?
Beavertown Brewery.
What else was in the Pound Shop, though? There's been something else that you got from a Pound Shop.
I just love a Pound Shop, me.
Some of the scenery in a lot of the episodes.
I just love a Pound Shop. Can you get 4 crunchies?
It's fine.
For £1.
How much?
4 crunchies for £1. Bargain.
Wow. I might have to go visit when we're allowed to in the future.
I was going to say, I've not been in a shop for nearly a year.
I know. The only shop I've been in is mine.
I've been in a petrol station, but that is it.
Yeah, mine's a petrol station. That's the only thing. That's the only thing I've got.
Still go in a Pound Shop. The Pound Shops are open if they've got groceries.
I know I can, but I'm not.
I haven't really. I've only gone in when I've run out of pot noodles and crunchies and shake 'em back. I just needed to put the freshness back. All right, don't judge me.
Yeah.
Okay, we won't judge you.
Don't put it on your Pop-Tarts though, because that'd probably taste fucking horrible.
No, it would be tarticide, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Toast aside.
What do you think of this all of a sudden? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's been alluded to with Holly that, he and she haven't been the best, from an IQ standpoint, but all this senility that all of a sudden comes in.
Computer senility, yeah. Well, this is a concept from the second book, Better Than Life. This is the first episode that was based on the book, rather than the books having bits based on episodes. So when they come out of Better Than Life, I think it's been 2 years where Holly's been on his own.
Right.
And he has gone computer senile in that time, but while they've been on there, Talkie Toaster, who's been the only companion for Holly, had convinced Holly to do this experiment where it put I think it's him in the book, put his intelligence up to 12,000, but meant that he got no lifespan. So when they all get out of Better Than Life, the Total Immersion video game, all of the computers and everything are off. All the power's down, like in this episode.
I remember that now you've said it.
This episode was originally going to have an end section or be a 2-parter where they ended up on the garbage world.
Right.
Which is Earth. But they would probably have made it not Earth in the series.
Yeah.
But that was deemed as way too expensive for them to be able to do. So they cut it down and made it into the one episode. I'm glad they did, because it's a fucking brilliant episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I think it's another sort of retcon from the book where they've brought it in and gone, right, we're going to mention that Holly is computer senile.
Well, it's interesting because TV form, if you think about some of the modern stuff, like the Marvel stuff now, where, you'll have characters who are never really going to be a front focus or even like involved. They'll use them to a different route. They'll use a different way, or they'll mention them, like the twins, for example, in WandaVision. So they've got like various different ways to play around with it. And like Walking Dead, for example, they've got characters who aren't even in the comics.
Yeah. Daryl's not in any of the comics.
No. And then you've got like obviously the jail, the prison being at a different kind of timeline to where they are and things. And you just think that Red Dwarf is doing this so long ago, the fact that they were doing this then, and instilling this from the multimedia of the books. And
there was a predecessor, which is obviously a big influence on Red Dwarf anyway, with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which started out as a radio series, then it was the book, then the TV series, and then years and years and years later after Red Dwarf, it was the film. So that was a precedent before that, but yeah, it's definitely continuing in that tradition.
I think it's fascinating that it seems like what I assumed were errors and retcons and mistakes, and is quite heavily suggested in the Smeg-Ups, if my memory serves, are actually thoughtful things that they've done because they expanded on stuff and liked what they did in the books. I had no idea, so thank you for bringing that to the table, Colin.
That's all right. I've just reordered the first two books because I've not read them since I was a kid. I've just, like, literally before we started recording gone, I need to read them again, and can't be asked to go and find them at my dad's house because it's locked down. So, yeah, I've ordered them, which Kurt's showing us in the camera right now.
I got them a few weeks ago.
I bought all the audiobooks because I've read the books years ago. I thought I'd try listening to them for when we cover the books because, they're unabridged. I might as well do it in the medium that I prefer. I'm looking forward to those specials, actually.
The audiobooks are utterly fantastic as well. Yeah, Chris Barry's done the first two, I think. Craig Charles definitely does Last Human. I've not heard backwards, so I don't know who does that one. But
going back to the computer senility thing, I do feel like it's a brave move to do dementia as something in a sitcom because it is tough to make funny while still being sensitive. And sometimes Red Dwarf has had a bit of the old 80s and 90s ick, but I really do feel like they get it right here and it's quite sensitively done, but they still manage to make it funny, but it's sympathetic funny.
I think it's because they don't dwell on it and don't make it
exactly that.
It's a plot point, not what they're deriving the humour from. And they could easily have done that and it could have been 80s ick, even though it was 91.
But it does open up an interesting question, though, because if it's like, if there was, someone with severe dementia that you could, bring back for a short period of time, to be able to like spend time with that person compared to where they are at that moment in time, it's an interesting moral dilemma that in itself.
Yeah, even if it shortens their life.
Here's the thing, you can't make that decision for them, but they don't have the capacity to make that decision, so it's fucking miserable is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of get that right with how it's done and how Holly's like, her reaction is horror. And of course it is.
And she really fucking sells that bit.
She does.
Hattie Hayridge's acting in this episode is fucking brilliant.
I've said before how Hattie Hayridge doesn't get much time, but what she does makes count.
Yeah.
In this episode, she gets plenty, and what she does really fucking counts.
She's got the brilliant bits of comedy with the bits where she's counting by banging her head on the screen.
Wonderful.
And then, she's got the bit where you can see the realisation on her face that they've got the decimal point wrong and it's 3 point something minutes, not 3.14 years.
Yeah.
it's fucking great. She deserves a lot of credit for that.
Absolutely, and I think as I say, we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. But one thing I wanted to mention was the something that gets picked up on, and I don't. This is maybe the genesis for it, because I don't think it's ever been mentioned before. But Crichton starts talking about if Earth still exists, and Lister says, a time machine, or can you do, which century would you live in? You can go back to Earth, kind of thing. And it's like there's an episode in there somewhere. There's an episode or a gag in there somewhere which they haven't quite figured out yet.
I really like Crichton's response to that as well. Because it's like, if you could go back to any time, well, I'd go back to last Tuesday. I did all the ironing and we watched a movie. It was great. That's really nice. I like that he's so happy.
To be fair, getting all your ironing done and then watching a film you like, that is happy times, man.
We just don't bother ironing in our house.
I only ironed
in
like
fucking years.
Haven't gone anywhere for a year.
Well, I only iron shirts for funerals and weddings. I don't iron anything else.
You have to do it as part of your work.
Yeah, like one shirt per ceremony. I don't iron my jeans or anything. My mom used to iron my pants when I was a kid. I'm like, Mom, don't iron my pants. Oh, but they look nice in the drawer. No one sees the drawer.
Okay.
She still irons my dad's pants.
That's amazing.
My auntie lives in the Manchester area, and I used to go there all the time, as a kid. And Red Dwarf, one of my big Red Dwarf moments was talking about reading the books when you were younger. I remember being in the spare room on a night time, on my own, because it was me and my brother, but my brother went to my other auntie's and I stayed at this auntie's. Right. And I used to read the book. I remember reading Better Than Life, that thing. I can't remember too much about it, but as we talk, things develop. But I kind of I spent maybe a week there, and I bought, this is maybe when I was just maybe turning 16, I think, somewhere around there. And I bought these really, really expensive jeans, brand new. I'm going to look like, so I must have been turning 17 because I probably would have been going to the pub with my uncle. And I woke up one morning and she says, I'll just so you know, I've darned your jeans for you, because they were all the ripped jeans all the way down the actual thing. And she literally darned them all. Patched them all up.
The thing is, now, ripped jeans that have been sewn would be like a fashion statement.
Yeah, I was just ahead of the curve, back in 1996, 97.
I don't understand fashion statements. I'm sitting here in a Danger Mouse jumper and Skeletor pajamas.
Brilliant.
I was hoping it was going to be Super Ted.
I'm just, how gays are supposed to be good with fashion. I am a crap gay. I get none of the fringe benefits like good dancing or fashion sense. I just get the homophobia.
What period of time would you go to then if you had the choice?
Is this would I be the age I was then, or can I be in current age?
Yeah,
you'd have to be current age.
As you are.
Yeah, there's loads. It better not be just a one-way trip, because there's quite a few, gigs I want to go to. It's nearly all music related, obviously, with me.
Well, you don't need to go to Woodstock.
No. There's various gigs that I missed. That Ozfest '98 I missed because I was on holiday. I could go back and see Human Waste Project and watch.
There you go. Well, I think that'll be your choice then.
Pantera and that lot. That'd be ace.
In my head, I'd quite enjoy the 80s for the club scene, etc., etc. But I wouldn't really enjoy the police brutality towards gay people. So it's a really tough one for me, because if I go back more than 10 years, I can't even get fucking married. So I don't...
No. And who says you need to go back?
Oh.
Could go forward.
Well, yeah, but we won't have a planet by then if Greta fucking Thunberg's right. And she is.
Yeah.
I don't think... Honestly, if it was a one-way trip, I wouldn't take it.
No, I can dig that. Yeah.
I can dig that. I was thinking similar. I was like, I don't know if I'd want to. I think it's interesting. You do that podcast, Mark. It's something about millennials or something.
Right in the childhood.
I don't know what it's about, but Exactly, something like that.
It's a good podcast. You should listen to it. We get about a fifth of the listeners that we do for Shipwrecked and Comatose. So I try and push it as much as I can in case people want to listen because it's good and we enjoy it.
It is good.
Yeah,
I like it.
But I think I fall in a really unique position. I'm not sure. Like, if, say for example, like I wanted to live right now, would I have wanted to live in this period of time right now with the technology that I've got available? Yes. I was born in an analog world, but moved into a digital world. And I'm not quite sure that if I moved out of 5 years either side, would I still be in the position I'm in now, which I love my tech. You know what I mean? I at some point early doors, when you're at school and whatever, and you've got Acorn computers, you know what I mean? It's like,
with green screens.
With green
all
screens.
BBC computers we had.
Oh, we had BBC. We had BBC, and then Acorns were the new ones. You know, they were the posh ones. You know. So.
Well, the three of us, like you said, had analog childhoods and digital adulthoods. That's kind of what a Zennial is. It's a tiny little micro generation between Generation X and Millennial, which all three of us fit in. And you were clearly the kid that went to computer club after school because you've got the knowledge of tech. Whereas if people ignored tech like they could that are our age, they're a bit kind of behind, or they can be. And boomers have always assumed that anyone under 45 is great with tech. And that's just not the case if you're late Gen X or Zennial or even early Millennial, to be honest with you.
It's an interesting time to have been born. Everyone believes that in their own lives, I suppose, but it's just that I say with that micro thing, it just makes it really strange. One of the things you mentioned, just go back to Red Dwarf because we need to talk about that at some point. I would actually love to see a TV show of Holly, Toasty, and a Scusser.
A spin-off.
Yeah, because talking about Toasty and Holly spending time together because they have some. You mentioned about the book, but they have some good conversation between them.
Although it would keep going back to toast.
It would. And muffins and crumpets.
Yeah.
And we might get Pop-Tarts.
Product placement. It depends on whether they can get the big Kellogg's money or whoever it is that makes Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. When we get the IQ of 68, I know I said Holly has a fantastic thing. The look that she gives them when she's
cross-eyed.
When she's 68, yeah.
Brilliant. That's a good gag. That is a good gag. I love a visual gag. And I don't think... So, unfortunately, like you've mentioned, people our age are either into tech or they're not. I do like my mobile telephone. And I don't give television the attention that I did when I was first watching Red Dwarf. And I'm sure I miss visual gags when I'm dicking around with my phone. And it has to be a very special telly program for me to put my phone to one side. And that's something that we've lost, that, again, people our age have experienced full concentration on telly. And I wonder whether telly's changed because of that.
I think there's still stuff with lots of decent visual gags in it. I mean, like Community is relatively recent, and there's stuff that goes on in the background.
True.
In Community that is utterly fucking brilliant. Like there's my favourite bit of that is I think it's over the period of about 4 different seasons. Somebody says the word Beetlejuice just randomly. And the third time somebody says Beetlejuice, like 4 series in, he walks past in the background.
Oh, right, okay. I'll have to keep an eye on. I'm on season 3 at the moment, so I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
Great.
Oh, fantastic!
But yeah, Queeg shows up.
Well, it's a good question if Queeg shows up. So her IQ has been 12,000 odd, and her life is now 345. And let's say the decimal points and all that kind of thing happens. And totally says, "Well, what the speg are you going to do?"
Just before that, you've got the absolutely amazing bit where her head is not on the screen anymore. Yeah. It's a holographic projection. And Talkie Toaster's the only person she's got there to talk to. So she's like, ask me a question about anything. I know everything about all of history, all of the future, all of science. And obviously he asks her if she wants any toast, but the third question he asks her is just fucking brilliant, and it's my quotable Red Dwarf.
Good.
Because between me and my dad, there have definitely been times where we've had this particular bread product in the house, and somebody said, given that God is infinite and the universe is also infinite, would you like a toasted tea cake?
So why is the talkie toaster still funny? Why? It's literally
'Cause he's
No, but it's
brilliant.
one gag. It is one gag on repeat. And I know British people like repetitive humour, but fucking hell, why is the talkie toaster always so funny? I don't get it, but I do get it.
It's very currency. That's why.
Bad jokes are funnier the more they are repeated.
Yeah.
That's always been my philosophy, as people can probably tell.
So Queeg turns up.
Yeah.
I just think that it's because you're never quite sure if it's ever going to change. Because I think a lot of humor like that, or a lot of repetitive humor, is is that moment when they go off the book. So you're waiting for that to happen, and it's like every time you're like, are they going to change? Is it going to change? Oh no, it's not. And when they do change, it's like it is actually really funny. So I think there's a bit of that goes on as well. But I love repetitive humor. It's brilliant.
I'm right though. It is quite a British thing, the repetitive humour thing.
Well, I
think so. Yeah.
Homer Simpson on that cliff thing.
True.
That happens, and when he runs,
and the rakes with Sideshow Bob.
Also, the repeated joke in Family Guy when someone hurts their leg. Ooh.
Yeah.
And obviously when he falls down the cliff in Family Guy, which is The Simpsons, he said do it again, and I was like, oh, when I saw that the first time, I was like, yes, that's one of my favourite Simpsons jokes ever.
Brilliant. And
the fact that it got repeated. And obviously the chicken thing and the bird is the word is by far one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Oh, do you know?
But yeah, repetitive. So I'm not sure if it is just British. I think it is.
I think it's one of the building blocks of comedy, isn't it? It's one of the things you've got in your toolbox.
Yeah.
And it is worth fucking using because it's great.
Yeah. Well, it's better than kicking the bed tray, isn't it, really? Moving on. And we hear the voice of doom, apparently, on the transcript, which is one of my... I was showing this to some friends of mine earlier. I was watching the episode, and it said, it says, listener, can anyone hear anything? No, precisely. No one can hear anything. And you know why we can't hear anything? Why? Because there are no sounds to hear.
Yeah, Crichton's fucking brilliant. I love that line. The way Robert Llewellyn delivers that is fucking good.
It is. However, it's still not quite. It's insane. It's not quite as good as that.
No,
it's insane.
It isn't, but I just think it's just like it's total literal humor.
Oh yeah,
we've gone from like repetitive humor to like literally switch it on the next second, and you've got someone saying I can't hear anything. And they do use this joke again in some of the Dave stuff. There's a scene which isn't really a spoiler. It's like, what's that noise? It's you. Stop talking. It's that kind of, it's that kind of thing. So there's stuff like that comes back, and again, that's a staple of like a hospital. What is it? Where it's a building that people go to get well.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. So literal humor, which is
that kind of joke being associated with Crichton, is very much establishment of Robert Llewellyn being comfortable in his role after not being bad in any way in Series 3, but being a little bit kind of teething problems in some respects. It's clear that not only is Robert Llewellyn good and a brilliant actor, it's also clear he's having the time of his fucking life.
He's really at home.
Yeah.
And it's like Kurt was saying in the last series, they are all it's all falling completely into place and they're all where they need to be. And it's fucking brilliant.
And then speaking of that, the next few scenes have everything you need to what people think of Red Dwarf. You've got, we can laser our way through. Well, two minor drawbacks with that. We don't have a power source for the lasers, and we don't have any lasers. And then literally seconds after that, you've got Space Core Directive and the Rimmer Directive. So it's
no chance, you metal bastard.
Look, that's as far as I remember. That's the first instance of an excellent suggestion, sir. Which is one of my favourite things in all of Red Dwarf. It's just so funny.
As I say, within that small space of time, you've got Space Core Directives, you've got the Rimmer quoting a directive, which quickly becomes incorporated into the Space Core Directive. Yeah. And then you've got, as you say, there's Rocket Pants, stuff like that later in the season. I just I think it's wonderful that, we're getting, in the last 2 episodes, both have been really strong and both have got quintessential Red Dwarf stuff in it.
I like the condescension that's associated with intelligence. It's that the cat doesn't spot that he's being spoken down to. And I love that. And I think that I'm going to do this now as I think about it. When you slightly overpronounce things, that's when the condescension has really kicked in.
I do that at work all of the time when I'm speaking to customers.
Oh, yes.
And I try and play it off as I'm trying to make it so they can hear me properly on the phone, but no, it's fucking condescending because do you know what my favourite condescending thing I ever did when I worked in a library? And I did it so frequently. People would come in and ask me a question, and I'd say, I'm sorry, I don't know. Do you want me to Google that for you? And the amount of people that said, yes, please. Yeah. Just fuck off. The whole point was, I could Google it. Good point. Well, good point, intelligent librarian who didn't mean to be patronising, honest. Do you know there's even a website called Would You Like Me to Google That For You? And it goes to Google. It's the initials LMGTFY.com, I think it is. And it directly Googles it and types it in for you.
Thanks for that, Susan.
That's great. When they need something to batter their way through the doors that's about 6 foot long
with
and
a
made of metal. With a flat top. And they'll just look at him.
Novelty eraser head.
Yeah, again, the fact that all of them are now this crew that they're in sync with each other. They know exactly what's happening. Crichton's the bum of the joke on this one. It's just fantastic. And thinking about the credits, even though I've not watched them, I always remember that I haven't seen season 4's credits, if I'm being honest with you. That that you get Crichton's head bump, and then you get the bird, don't you, straight after it, and that's singed in my brain as part of the credits because it's just there. As soon as you see that battering ram, it is part of the credits. It's like the opening credits. So it is something that I always remember. Every time I see that battering ram scene, it's like, I know what it is now.
Yeah.
This is something I wanted to pick up with, and I think it's happened. An intriguing bit I don't think we've talked about recently, but it has happened. We talked about the scene, Mark, a couple of episodes ago where Rimmer seems to be in charge. When they were doing the squabbling, it's like,
yes.
Rimmer's being boss again here. Then this is the second or third time we've seen this of late, where he seems to be commanding. He seems to be taking charge of various different things. And he's doing the same here. He's like, can we boot her up, please? And can you do this? Can we do this? Can we do that? He's almost like being the captain of the ship. And I think it's an interesting dynamic that they've started to filter in a little bit. That I don't know if this is maybe a Chris Barry thing that he may have asked, can I have a bit more to do?
Can I be the boss?
Can I be, I'm meant to be the boss? Or can Rimmer as a character be a part, actually feel like he's trying to command? But it seems to be a newish thing that's come in.
I think to some extent it's, again, evolution of a character in as much as he always wanted to be in charge, but he didn't have the opportunity because he was incompetent. But because there's no one else, he's actually starting to flourish in a lot of ways. I think it's quite subtle, but I think this is kind of like a development of Rimmer as he would never have been good in charge if there were other people, but because he's got these 3 smegheads, he's actually kind of warming to the role. I think it's subtle, but I think it's that.
I mean, he was giving Keish a chance at the end of the day. It was
I
giving
fucking
quiche a
love
chance.
quiche.
The devil's pie.
Talk about repetitive humour. Anyway,
It's almost like I've deliberately been doing that, Kurt. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
You remember when we talked about over-pronouncing when you were being condescending? Ah,
Did
I'm
you?
so good. It's almost like a planet.
So what is it?
what is it?
And that would be my quotable dwarf of the episode, obviously.
But we're not there yet. We're not there. We're talking about taking the inhibitor off. You know what's going on. Open. You know.
Sorry, we got excited, Kurt. You should take control like Rimmer does.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore.
Jesus, Meghead.
My intelligence has been compressed to such a point where it's like, yeah, whatever. And the fact that Holly gets to call Rimmer a total smeghead.
Brilliant. And it's the venom as well. Smeghead.
Yeah.
It's just so venomous. Oh, it's wonderful.
It's quite condescending as well, isn't it? The way they say smeghead.
It is. I also like her hairdo. I like that she gets a better hairdo because she's more intelligent and she's not got the 80s bob anymore.
Originally, the plan was for her to be completely bald with little glasses.
Brilliant.
In that scene. But I'm glad they decided to just sort of slick her hair back because I think that was a
really
little bit
works.
too
Games Master.
Oh, she's an egghead.
It really works.
maybe a little bit too Games Master, maybe.
But thinking about it, Queeg, I know we always talk about Queeg, but Queeg had a shaved head.
He showed
He
up.
did. But he was more intelligent than Holly and he had a shaved head. So obviously talking to a pair of baldies, clearly a shaved head means you're dead clever.
And very good with technology.
And
apparently.
good in bed. All of those
I could
things.
go with that.
All of
And
the
kind to animals.
Well, what about a moose?
You have to be kind to a moose.
Yeah, I'm not going to fuck with a moose.
If you don't.
Because she calls him a moose brain, which is a bit like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. And then when they actually realise, and it's like, and the way she went, oh, I don't see. Let me see now.
It's wonderful.
Queeg shows up, and the nuance in Kat's put down to Rimmer is wonderful as well. The fact that he calls him Grand Canyon nostrils.
I don't think that Chris Barry has got particularly large nostrils, has he?
He flares them a lot.
Because he kind of like, he obviously puts himself up, doesn't he? Like, kind of thing. So I think that's what it's alluding to. It's more his expression.
And it is Chris Barry that does that, not the character necessarily, because he does it as Gordon Brittas as well.
Yeah.
Gordon Brittas is also a job's worth, so I'm not surprised.
They're nearly the same character, aren't they, to be honest?
I love the Brittas Empire. I won't have a bad word said about it, but
I've not watched it since it was on, but I do want to rewatch it.
I remember
Yeah.
just how much it wigged me out every time with the kind of horrible visual jokes about Colin's hand. Do you remember Colin, who had the bandage on his hand, and there was always...
Yes, of course I fucking remember.
Oh, shit, yeah. Oh, shit, yeah. If it helps, I got loads of Addams Family shit when I was a kid.
Sorry, I got called Kurt Cobain. or he's the one that was slightly more askew. King Kurt.
Was that when you went all rockabilly?
That's when I went all rockabilly.
Yeah.
Holly gets shut down, and we get a little bit of a conversation about history being rewritten by the winners and Captain Oates. And it is actually a really interesting debate, that really, isn't it? He says, I'm just going out for a walk. And in fact, they're absolutely right. There's no what's the proof? Where's the proof that could?
It's frightening and possible is what it is. And that's so grim.
Yeah.
And we'll never actually know. It's speculative, but you can believe it.
I think that's where I first learnt about it. And I've always known, I don't know if it's true or not, but my thoughts of what happened was,
and mopped him up with crusty bread.
I don't know if it was that detailed, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'd do. It's snowed quite a lot recently, and every time I've gone out for a walk in the snow, I've said to my wife, I'm just going out for a walk maybe sometime, every single time I've gone, because I think that's hilarious.
That's quotable dwarf for you then, isn't it, really?
No, That's quotable, Captain Oaks.
Made famous by Red Dwarf.
Yes, definitely. Nobody would know about it. I wouldn't. I didn't know about it before
And you
then.
say that we've talked about the fact that Red Dwarf was referred to Goebbels as, was it Goebbels who was a transvestite? And there's no evidence that Goebbels was a transvestite other than Red Dwarf said it.
The power goes out because obviously we've got to, they've got to conserve the energy. There's a whole comment about Rimmer being, put on backup, but if he was turned off, would he be able to be switched back on again? And Kat quickly jumps on it.
With no drawback.
Yeah. So again, this camaraderie kind of like, attack the weakest of the pack for the time being to see, a bit of banter kind of thing. And an interesting debate comes up about, the fact that there's no heating, there's no light, there's no power, there's nothing like that. Would you survive? Would you survive in a world like that? Would you survive in a dystopian, just on surviving on your instincts, put it that way?
Oh, no, I'd be fucked.
Probably not, no. When I was a teenager, did the Duke of Edinburgh Award.
Oh, yeah.
When we were at school, where we went on a survival weekend. And when we came back from the survival weekend, I was asked to leave the Duke of Edinburgh Award because we were on this campsite and there were some other people camping there and we were supposed to be like building a fire and cooking our own food. And I went and bought a steak sandwich from them, which is what I'd fucking do in the wild if there was some people there with steak sandwiches. But apparently that was not in the spirit.
So
of the
here's
Duke of
the thing,
Edinburgh
right?
Award.
I'm a scout leader and I've always rewarded innovative kids. I set this whole thing on a Zoom meeting about work together, and I sent them all in the post a line from a poem, and the idea was they had to work together to put the poem to it. It was supposed to be like a half an hour, 45-minute activity, and one smart-ass kid was like, "I'm just going to Google a couple of the lines," which worked.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Do you know what? Well done."
Yeah.
So it has changed a bit since then.
Yeah.
Or I'm a bit of a maverick as a scout leader.
Yeah. Probably didn't help that the one of the Duke of Edinburgh leader type people was my mate's stepdad, who we didn't get on with. And there was a bit where we were supposed to be walking on our own, but being surreptitiously observed. And we knew they were just walking the other side of this fence. So as we were walking along, I was chucking sticks over.
We still have to do that in scouting, and I find it creepy as fuck. So the way I've always dealt with it is I've said, give me your route. I'm going to be at this coffee shop, say hello. Then I'm going to be at this coffee shop, say hello. Yeah. Then I'm going to be at this coffee shop. I don't fucking follow the kids.
Yeah. Imagine if somebody saw you doing it these days. It's probably not going to end the same way, is it?
We've got the bikes and we've got the powering and trying to perm or blow dry an egg, which is fantastic. So, and the fact that he's got the way that Kat's like sort of delivered the line. So obviously some time has actually passed at this point because, they're saying it's Tuesday, it's my turn for the electric blanket. So some time has actually passed, which I quite like the way that they've brought that in, the fact that, it's not just a case of it's just happened. And it's nice to know that there's a bit of time has lapsed on there.
It's not a problem that can be solved quickly or easily, and I think it's nice that they emphasise that. That's proper sci-fi.
Yeah,
yeah. And this is another. I mean, the whole white hole thing is a pretty hard sci-fi concept. A little bit like we were talking about back in Future Echoes.
Yeah,
it's a similar, proper sci-fi level sort of concept, isn't it?
And we're about to get there because we're about to get to the explosion that we see, and what I found interesting, and I think the podcast would find interesting. 5 days to get around to and from the cargo deck. It says 2,000 floors without the lift. That's pretty good time. So apparently it takes 5 days to get around. So a 4-hour lift journey would be all right.
Yeah, we have looked at this and we have mocked this, and I think we've noticed more on the rewatch, or rather on the over-analytical, we're doing a podcast rewatch. just how fucking sci-fi this actually is as a show. I kind of just saw it as a setting for the funnies. It's not.
Yeah.
They do have some really interesting and really innovative and original sci-fi concepts.
Well, this sci-fi concept in this split screen with the speeding up and slowing down, what do you make to it? Because personally, I'll just say I think it's brilliant, and I don't have any issues with it. What about you, Colin? What do you think to this scene with Crichton and Rimmer?
It's great. It's really funny. But in hindsight, these days, what it reminds me of is, you remember that website Vine a few years ago that was like
6 second,
short bits of YouTube, basically, and there's loads of YouTube compilations. There is a quite famous Vine sketch thingy where it's this bloke with himself with that exact same effect. So half of his screen is slowed down and half of it's sped up, doing a duet with himself singing Baby It's Cold Outside.
Right.
And that always sticks in my head now when I see that.
The only thing I've got to say on this is, why is people speaking when they've inhaled helium so fucking funny? I'm 42 years old, and someone who suddenly talks like this is really funny. And it's been funny since I was 3. And why? Why is it still funny? It shouldn't be. I'm a fucking man-child. Doesn't matter who it is, the complete lack of dignity. When you start to talk like this, it's funny.
But the opposite as well, when it's slowed down, any voice that's at the wrong speed is generally, when it goes over a certain amount, is funny.
I sometimes, well, a lot of the time now, edit my podcasts at around 1.7.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're editing with the funny with your voice on, you get used to people's voices at high speed. And sometimes when you come to do a podcast with somebody, you're like, oh, they've got a low voice.
I just started that with the last episode of We Dig Music that I edited, because it was 2 hours long. I thought, right, I'm going to try doing it at 1.5 speed, and it works all right. I mixed it at that level. But yeah, it is really funny, because particularly as it meant Tracy was incredibly high.
I mean, there's certain things as well that can rejig your thing down to like the same.
Which is what Audible does, right?
Yes. When I'm listening to podcasts, I listen to them at sped up speed, but so Podcast Addict that I use, it doesn't change the pitch with it.
Yeah.
It basically truncates silence. So I listen to certain podcasts where I know people's voices well enough. I can listen to incredibly fast. So I listen to Life's Milestones at 2.5 speed.
Holy shit.
And it's fine. I don't miss any of it. I get every single bit of it.
Am I particularly slow in the way I talk?
No, it's. I have trained my ears, and I've just upped it over time. So I started off listening to podcasts at 1.5 speed, and then upped it to 1.8. And then if you just do it gradually, eventually you can train your ears and you can fit more podcasts in that way, which I fucking need to with the amount I listen to. Mainly with the amount that Mark fucking makes, so I listen to most of those.
But I actually don't do that with podcasts. I do it on Audible because it adjusts the author, the narrator, and even at that, I only do it at 1.25. Any faster than that, and it sounds weird as fuck.
I can only do it on headphones. If I'm listening to it on a speaker, I have to have it a lot slower.
I can do. I've done like 1.4, 1.5 for certain podcasts on the way to work and truncate the silence at the same time. So it's all like compacted in. So like, you know, you can fit in like a 35, 40 minute, you know, in 20 minutes, for example, which is great stuff. Yeah.
Carl's Cerebral Jukebox, because they're like half-hour episodes anyway. I can do that in 10 minutes.
Madness. Not doing it. Don't want to.
Going back to the actual sci-fi element of it, because you say it's about a sci-fi show, and I probably don't laugh as much as you both do with this scene, because I'm so like caught up in the sci-fi element. The fact that they're jumping from one side to another and they sound the same when they're in that side. So you as a viewer are in whatever mindset that they're in. So when they're both in the same thing, you're in that with them, because otherwise, if you were in one side, you'd hear them both slow, you'd hear them both fast.
Yeah.
but you're always in the same. And I think that's a nice
it's
little touch.
relative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact, and even like sort of saying that the bigger and the look bigger, and it's a weird effect, but I actually like the effect because the effect works for what they're doing. It's space and time that's like either shrinking or dilated. Yeah. So the fact that they've put that together is really interesting. Glenn Miller was mentioned the other week, and we've got Paul Robeson on this one.
Yes.
That it's still intriguing me that where these names are coming from.
I've never heard of Paul Robeson. Who is he?
He's a very deep-voiced American folk singer from the 50s and 60s. I think he was. I think it was mainly the 60s.
Well, you've got to think that Grant and Naylor are about 20, 25 years older than we are. So these are cultural references that were important to them when they were growing up. And that's the only thing I can think of as the reason why they're putting in what is now really fucking obscure.
Like a slightly more contemporary, but only like by about 10 years, but it's held up a bit better. If they'd have said Barry White for the really deep voice,
but I think
that would probably have worked better.
I don't know my history with Paul Robeson, but I think he had some political aspect behind him, and he potentially did a lot of speeches and things like that. So I think the whole point of him being on dope might be an allusion to the fact of one of his speeches, or just listening to him talk rather than just being the thing.
You know what? I could be entirely wrong about him being a folk singer. No, he was definitely a singer. Manic Street Preachers have a song called "Let Robeson Sing."
Wait, it was like a jazz? Wasn't it like a jazz musician?
Well, the fact that we're having this conversation tells you that it didn't age well.
No, he's not a well-known. For me, he's a name that I've heard in the ether, but nothing that I've. I mean, Glenn Miller, it's probably more.
Yeah, but would I know Glenn Miller if it wasn't for Jive Bunny?
Paul Robeson. This is how long ago the reference is. He was born in April 1898.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a bit of an odd one.
So he was mostly well known. It was 30s, 40s, and 50s by the looks of it. So it's even older than I thought it was.
So it's their parents' shit.
Yeah, but he's before it says what style he does, he is an American bass baritone concert artist. So his deep voice is his defining feature.
Okay. So what is it?
Quotable dwarf.
Pretty much, if you're a Red Dwarf fan, this is bound to be a quotable dwarf. It's bound to be. Everyone must do. I mean, I know he said it in the past, but this is what made it famous. Surely,
this scene is fucking. It's just so well written.
It's great,
and so well acted as well. Because I think well acted is not the best word for it.
Blocked,
but it's hilarious how they could have filmed it and copied and pasted the film and just repeated it. But it's obvious that they did it all twice, because you've got Lister is almost smirking the second time when he takes his hat off in exactly the same way he's just previously done.
It reminds me of Future Echoes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's an episode in season 8 as well, where they kind of do the same, but with the computer, because it's an AR thing. I don't know if you remember that one in season 8. And
I've only seen season 8 when it was broadcast, so back the first time round.
They're basically
looking for
in season 8. It's like Rimmer is at what he believes is outside of the AR, and he's setting them up. Lister starts to realize that, but then things start to move because the thing's cut and it's edited. So it's like anytime they mention Rimmer, it gets cut. So it's like, and there's brilliant bits when we get to it in season 8. It's because I love season 8. I think it's underrated in my opinion.
Is it 7 or 8 where Rimmer? Well, not Rimmer. Chris Barry is part time.
7. Yeah, he's back for 8. He's back full time for 8. But yeah, so there's like, this is something that will get repeated again, but in slightly different ways. But this is the epitome, as I say, of like, because you don't even see Crichton get on that counter because he can't physically move. So I can imagine a crane being put on to get him onto the bloody counter in the first place. But it's even things like this. Now we've reached the middle of this conversation. So it's decided then, and it's just really, really well blocked, as you say. It's kind of like, the fact that they've read the lines and they've got everything. Yeah. They've been told to do certain things, like sort of like spewing time and then using the finger point, putting the hat on. Yeah. Like, obviously, Cat going, "What is it?" Opening his arms up and then having it make sure is like only joking, with it being quite stilted. So I think that the direction, and considering this was designed with Ed by in hand and the director changed, is brilliant to think about.
Well, they're all too scared to get it wrong.
Maybe, yeah. On a completely unrelated note, this scene, isn't the white hole really pretty and like still genuinely could be CGI now? I thought it was ace.
Yeah, it's not aged badly, definitely.
No, it looks good.
Yeah. It might be done by Quantel.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Quantel. It's almost like we're deliberately doing repeated jokes because this is the episode about repeated jokes.
Almost.
It is almost like we're doing repeated jokes because this is the episode about repeated jokes.
I think
So what is it?
We've met the middle of this conversation.
We're so clever. I'm so pleased with us.
Oh, it's so juvenile.
Yeah, we're definitely that. Absolutely fucking juvenile.
I mean, what time phenomenon?
So quick turns up.
Toweling robe.
When the time repeat. Toweling robe. I completely forgot about toweling robe.
Is this the most chaotic one yet? It might be.
Yeah.
It's quite chaotic, but I was always playing for that.
Do you need another beer?
Good.
I've had two.
You've had two. Okay.
That's enough
Only
for me.
joking.
So quick turns up.
Would anyone like any toast?
I hope this is even vaguely as funny for the listeners as it was for us.
It'll be horrific.
It won't be.
No. I think we need to consult Holly. That's what I think we need to do.
Yes.
And then we get a repeat of what happened before when the communication between Rimmer and Holly isn't right, isn't working. Which I think both elements of that is really good, actually, having them both like not communicate really well together. And it creates the data slug. And the data slug, I must admit, we've had tapes, we've had CDs, we've had various different things. It's nice to see something that's actually, quite technologically new for us.
It's almost like a USB thumb drive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not too far away from a micro SD card, is it?
But it's another fucking format. It's another format. Is. We've had tapes, we've had micro cassettes, we've had triangle VHS, and now we've got this weird fucking disky thing. Just pick a format. We got rid of Betamax, damn it.
Yes, but in the time that we have been watching it, we've gone through video, DVD, Blu-ray, and then streaming.
4K.
Yeah. So in a ship that big, they might have quite a few different formats. They might have a few things running on older systems than others. But no, it's probably more just that they hadn't really thought that bit through. But it's fine.
I'm quite irritated that makes sense. Fuck you, Colin.
Good.
Anyway, so it's decided then. We consult Holly.
Right, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so playing pool with planets. What are your thoughts on it? This is an interesting end to the story, isn't it? Because you've got an AI of 12,000 giving you the exact measurements, which would have got us to the moon. It would have got us to the moon. It would have got us around Mars. It's Voyager's out there doing what it needs to do because of precise technology, because of knowing exactly what the mathematics are. But yet they can't go with Rimmer. They cannot physically do it. Rimmer is right, and they cannot physically do it.
Funny.
There's the targeting computer where it's got the computer simulation as like a 3D hologram above it is great because it's like really futuristic technology that there's this 3D hologram display, and then the sound is Missile Command from 1980.
Brilliant.
But you know what? I mean, I'm not sure that Star Trek Next Generation would have done something like that. The closest was there was a game where Wesley Crusher was playing, But they wouldn't have done that much in this kind of realm of computer graphics. You know,
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's rudimental, really. But the fact that they've actually got these proper effects that are in there. Again, probably Quantel, but yeah, it's just really interesting. I mean, but the very fact that they know this is like ridiculous and that they're going to leave it with Lister because they can't get hooked, they can't do Rimmer. As I say, it's an interesting dynamic, really. What do you think to it, Mark?
I really liked this scene, but did you spot the 90s ick?
No, because I never spot these things. You're our curator for that.
So the word GIMP in 1991, it isn't the word that you think it is because Pulp Fiction was released in 1993. Until Pulp Fiction, the term GIMP meant something different, particularly in British culture. Obviously, we all know about the sexualized fetish suit word for GIMP, which isn't really offensive. If someone's into that, it is okay to call them a GIMP. But it's actually quite an unpleasant ableist slur. Gimpy meaning like a gimpy leg, if you've ever heard that term. So it just means it's an unpleasant way of associating physical disability with mental disability, like people did around this time. And it's a shame.
I never realised that.
No, I never know.
Yeah.
And it's such a throwaway line. And if you weren't an oversensitive gimp like me, you probably wouldn't spot it. But joking apart, it is quite unpleasant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
No, I
didn't
can
know
definitely dig that.
I mean, there is GIMP editing photo software.
I know.
The GNU image manipulation.
I don't
program.
associate GIMP with the ableist slur of the 80s. I don't. I associate it with the sexualized fetish culture.
Pulp Fiction-y kind of.
And anyone who's seen Pulp Fiction, and to be honest, most people who haven't, who's into sex maybe, will know that version of it and giggle at GIMP, the program. And I do that. But at the time, I feel like this was an unpleasant choice.
Okay. Was the GIMP, the rubber suit thing, not a thing at all until Pulp Fiction?
In my
then?
research,
Not known, then?
maybe sort of kind of, but probably not in British culture because it was Pulp Fiction that brought it to a very kind of prominent idea.
Yeah, it's obviously where I'd first heard of it because I was, when was that? 93, I was 11, so I would have been about 12 or 13 when I first
I was
saw
about
Pulp
the
Fiction.
same, maybe a little bit older.
Yeah.
And, it's not my vibe, but I know people who are into that shit. It is not an offensive term in 2021, but it was edging it in 1991.
It's an excellent film. It is.
And strangely enough, it's right next to McQueen DVD. I don't know why that. Those two don't go together, do they? The Queen and Pulp Fiction.
Well, it does if you haven't got any other things that begin with P in between the two, and you've got it alphabetically.
Oh, one of my mates.
That's exactly what I've got.
One of my mates nearly disowned me because I shuffled his DVD collection. He was so vexed. He's, you know, like these people that are so anal, and you just like Is it just me that when you know someone's really anal, you nudge the pictures in their houses just to knock them a little bit? I took it.
I'm locking this door. If he comes on,
I took it a little bit too far and shuffled his DVD collection. He was so vexed.
Stay away from my
Life
records,
is
man.
too short to alphabetize your shit. And I used to work in a fucking library.
But then I can't find what record I need next.
This is one of life's problems.
The ultimate gag, coming back to the Red Dwarf, this is going to be a fucker to edit.
Nah, just don't bother. Just put all the shit in.
It's fine, don't bother, it's fine. Is, will you relax? It's just like, I've seen him, he's marvellous, and I've never once seen those balls go down those holes. It's just the way that Cat delivers that line. It's just like, it's just brilliant because the way he sets it up to say he's a brilliant pool player, and it's just the fact that only Cat could do that because Cat doesn't understand the game.
The whole scene.
You know what I mean? It's a total Cat is like what a cat would do. He'd see a ball and go, "Oh, You know what I mean?
The whole scene is fucking superb. Everybody gets something funny, and it's quick fire. And I'm sorry, I'm having another episode with 2 quotable dwarves. Played for and got. I say that all the time. All the time.
I'd got a bit of a Mandela effect in this episode. You know when you've got false memories?
Mengele effect. No, it's sorry, that's an X-File reference. They play around with it, saying it's...
I've heard of the X-Files.
Yeah. Well, in the X-Files, they've got an episode called The Lost Art of Forehead Sweat, in which they have the Mandela effect, or the Mengele effect, because the Mengele effect is the Mandela effect. It was just by Joseph Mengele, not Mandela.
He was not as nice as Nelson Mandela. He was generally a nasty person.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Slayer didn't write any songs about Nelson Mandela, but Angel of Death is about Joseph Mengele. But anyway, my sort of Mandela effecty type thingy, I'd always got in my head that when he gets the trick shot, that Rimmer says, "You dammy dodger, you jammy dodger," a trick shot, and it's "you jammy goit." And I don't know why. For years, I'd been quoting that, and I was fucking quoting it wrong.
Does that count as quotable dwarf if you're misquoting?
If you fucking quoted it entirely wrong.
The amount of times that people say, "Beam me up, Scotty," and he never says it.
Does he never say it?
Never says it. No.
Does he say "There's life, Jim, but not as we know it"?
Yes, in that song from the 80s, Star Trekking.
Yeah, he says things like, beam us up or Scotty beam us up and things, but he never actually says. There's loads of TV programs where you get phrases that people say and they never actually say it.
Yeah, it's like "play it again, Sam" and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is never actually said in Casablanca.
Doctor Who,
I've never seen it.
The reverse the polarity of the neutron flow. It's said 3 times.
Yeah.
In like 30, 40, 50 fucking seasons, it's said 3 times.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? Just that as you say, that Mengele effect, or even like, I guess I'm even saying the Mengele effect. It's the whole X-File episode is based on that idea. So it's like, that's why I keep saying it. But
that must be one of the recent episodes.
It's a new one. Yeah.
Of the X-Files.
It's based around Trump. The actual episode is based around Trump and false facts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like because it says like there's a guy called They, who was like involved in like making sure that Trump had the largest number of guests at the inauguration and things like that. And it turns around to say, well, everything you can find, because obviously X-Files is about conspiracies and hiding the truth and stuff. And They just goes, no, we tell everyone the truth. Just people choose to decide which one they want. That's the basic premise of it. So.
Shit a brick. Pull with planets. Pull with planets.
Pull with planets.
Yes.
She rides. And then we get the reset. And now the reset, I struggle with the reset a little bit because I get what they do it, but there's no indication about when the actual event started to happen.
Yeah.
So, and I don't really think I don't know if they've not thought about that or they've just gone, I would just replay it. It didn't happen. Because there's no indication of like things going wrong at the very beginning of the episode.
No. And it's also... It's if they're going back to a different timeline, who's to say that they're not then going to do exactly the same thing again with Talkie Toaster and Holly and the intelligence thing again?
Yeah, because it seems to go back beyond that time, doesn't it? Because it has to go back to where
so they can
Holly's
still
waiting.
get to that. But I think it's another one of it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think Red Dwarf did the reset thing a few times, but it was before we were all a bit kind of reset fatigued. Doctor Who did it so much, and there are other programs that just do. Sabrina relatively recently did a complete reset, and I don't think it was as lazy in 1991 as it is considered to be now.
I would have liked something to indicate that something good, because the first time we ever get anything is the explosion where you get the 2 time differentials. There's no indication before that anything's wrong. You know,
so if there were some slight clues that you were like, that's why that happened. Yeah.
There's nothing that gets you back to that reset. Because as Colin says, the reset goes right back to before Holly gets the doing this analysis thing. But there's no indication that there's any problems up until the middle of the episode.
True.
But overall, I think this episode is probably one of the most underrated episodes of Red Dwarf, because going back right to our first ever episode, when we were all talking about what our favourite episodes of Red Dwarf, I don't think anybody even thought of this, but there are so many of the like classic bits that I've always thought about as being bits I love from Red Dwarf that are in this episode. But I don't think in a million years I'd have said White Hole, that's one of my favourite Red Dwarf episodes. But it is. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
And I was looking earlier to see if it had been credited on, you know, when websites do like
Top
you know
10
ranking
stuff, yeah.
all the episodes of Red Dwarf, and most of them no mention or it's fairly low down. Ganymede and Titan, obviously they fucking know their shit,
Yeah.
and
Right.
they got it in the top 10. But nowhere else. I think I found 5 or 6 other rankings of Red Dwarf episodes. None of them had got it anywhere near the top 10.
I think you're right that it's underrated. It is an exceptionally good episode. And spoiler alert, there are episodes later on that I think are overrated. And this one wasn't even on my radar, and it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
You see, I have more of a response to last week's than this week's. I think you're right. I think it is underrated, but I think Justice for me has gone way up in my estimation.
I think I'd always
Yeah,
remembered
I agree.
that Justice was great, though. I think it's the iconic stuff about the Justice boots. I mean, that was front cover of the Smegazine issue 2, I think it was.
Right, okay.
Which I had lying around in my room for fucking years, so I would have been seeing that picture all the time. So that's probably why that's kept that in my head a little bit. But Justice is one that I would have remembered is fucking brilliant. But White Hole is one I'd never even thought of.
I say I don't know, because it's like it's maybe just my mindset, because I naturally go to like a concept. I love a concept. So my favorite film is Inception. So I it's that type of thing for me. I've always considered this to be up there for it. Not I wouldn't necessarily mention it in the top. Like if I was like talking about the top 10s, like you say, I would probably put it in there, but I'd have to think about it to put it in there. It's not one of the ones I immediately think of, but the concept itself, for me, in my head, puts it higher. Whereas Justice isn't an episode I would naturally think about. I think for me, it's like more of my mindset on it, because it's a sci-fi concept. I like it better anyway. Justice is more of a character piece, and I
think that's the point, isn't it? That Red Dwarf is so good that you forgot Justice was great, and Colin and I forgot that White Hole is great. And that's the point. If it's that good that you forget an episode is great, the whole fucking show is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apart from that one last series that I can't remember the name of because it fucking annoyed me how bad it was.
Body Swap.
Yeah, Body Swap wasn't great.
That was it. Body Swap.
I tell you what, though, the rebound off that, after that episode, the rebound has been tremendous. There's not been, that episode, you got Last Day and you're going right through to now, and I've not had a problem with any one of them.
Yeah. Let's see if that continues.
Yes, let's see that. So that does bring the episode to a close. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
I think the ending where Crichton is really rude to Rimmer, I think that literally anybody who could be rude to someone who's wronged them without any kind of repercussions, you'd need to be a better person than me to not do that.
So that's it. That's the end of the episode. The end of Colin's stay on season 4.
That's all right. I'll see you later.
You will. It's been a pleasure as always.
Yes.
So, where can people find you on their internet, Colin?
I've got 2 other podcasts. I have We Dig Music, where me and my co-hosts Ian and Tracy are going through different years and choosing our 10 favourite songs each. So we've got 30 songs to vote from to find out the best song of that year, which is We Dig Music PCast on Twitter. You can find it by searching We Dig Music in podcast apps. It's also on my website, which is wedigpodcasts.com. And my other podcast, Free with this month's issue, which is me and Ian, plus a different guest each month, listening to old Kerrang, Enemy, Metal Hammer CDs, that sort of thing, which is at this month's issue on Twitter. It's all on Instagram, it's on Facebook. Use that search function thingy, you'll be fine. And
what speed would you recommend playing that at?
I would recommend playing it on whichever speed you've trained your brain to listen to things.
Okay, so if you're looking for me and my personal account, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at MarkAdamsHC. I've got 3 other podcasts at the moment. The first one is Life's Milestones, which is based on my job as a humanist celebrant, where I have a different guest every fortnight to talk about the milestones in their life, birth, marriage, and funerals. That is at Life's Milestones on Twitter. I have Right in the Childhood, which we mentioned earlier, which is my podcast about kids' telly, where 2 guys opposite ends of millennial, one on the Gen X side, that's me, and one on the Gen Z side, that's my mate Fraser, have a chat about, well, we take it in turns to watch each other's shit and see whether it's any good. That's at RITCpod on Twitter. And finally is my relatively new podcast launched not so long ago called Ink Stories, which is a micro podcast, 15-minute episodes max, where I have a different guest on each time to tell me a story about a tattoo that they've picked that is on them. At Ink Stories Pod on Twitter and on Instagram. And like Colin says, you can find all those on all your favourite podcast websites or providers or whatever. Just search for them by the name.
Sounds like a plan. Find me on Twitter at rmuldrake. That's RMULDRAKE. I've been on the WandaVision podcast, which was podcast 616, which is the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, which is now on our network. You can find me on the Star Trek Picard podcast, which has relaunched itself at the beginning of the year, where we look at Star Trek Picard. We've recently reviewed the Blu-ray. We've talked about the book that came out. We've talked to the author. And we're going to be reviewing just elements of the Star Trek world as well shortly as well. So that'd be great. You can find the pretty much it will be the finished article by the time you hear this, but the Millennium podcast, which is me going through the Millennium Show from 1996 to 1999, and that's at the Time Is Now pod on Twitter, and of course the X-Files, and that's the X-Cast, and that's the X_cast, where you can see us going through season 6 and prepping to go into season 7 as well, which should be great. So those are just a few of the podcasts that you can find me on. I'm sure that I'm on plenty of other ones on the We Made This Podcast Network.
To be fair, the 3 of us whore ourselves off on each other's podcasts and shit like that all the time, on loads of shit, because lockdown's dull and I like chatting.
Yeah.
And this one proves it. So that brings the episode to a close. What have we got next week, Mark? What's the next episode next? What have we got to look forward to?
We're going to have our first encounter with Ace Rimmer on Dimension Jump.
Ace Rimmer. Okay, so until next time, when you will see us talking about that their Dimension Jump, remember...
What is it?
Elsewhere on We Made This.
Free with this month's issue.
What I'd like to say right at the start is, that's the first time I've ever listened to this song on headphones, and I don't like how close Fred Durst sounds.
It feels like he's whispering it in your ear, doesn't it?
But they've put some kind of weird little chorus effect on there, so his voice sounds really slimy as well, and it's like, get the f*** out of my ear, Fred Durst.
That may be the Bluetooth connection and the internet connection.
No, because I remember hearing the voice from, the TV speakers and stuff like that, and it definitely sounds like that, but it's just very fucking dry and in your ear, and it's properly on. ASMR Fred Durst is not a thing that I like.
I don't like ASMR anyway.
No. Some people do, but I can't imagine Fred Durst will be who they would be wanting to do it.
Life's milestones.
So, my fascination with Americans and embalming, am I just being weird and obsessive, or is it still a massive deal?
We had my mother embalmed when she died because we just thought it was the thing you had to do.
Right.
And usually embalming, if you're going to have an open casket, they have to be embalmed. Otherwise, they won't look so hot.
And they won't smell very nice either.
No, they would not. It would not be a pleasant experience for anyone. But if you're going to do that, I guess embalming is necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea. I mean, if I'm dead and you're drawing all my fluids out, then I'm definitely dead. So, it is like taxidermy. I'm just on display for people to look at. I might as well be up on the wall.
Podcast 616, a Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast.
I was gone for 5 years and now I'm in a different reality. Whoa, what's happened there?
Luke's been blipped. Yeah. Luke's been blipped. Here he is. Luke's been blipped. He's back again.
So, Luke, it's been 5 years. I've got a few things to catch you up on.
Yeah.
What did he make to Loki season 6? Craig?
Well, what are we on? Spider-Man 8 now, are we? With Sony?
Yeah, but it's Miles Morales now, so that's all good.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This podcast network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at wemadethispod.